In the next tutorial, we will show you how to edit the header on your website. Upon being greeted with your dashboard, we will go to the top left of the page and we will view the front end. Once the page is loaded, we will simply hover over Edit with Elementor and we will right-click and open the header in a new tab. I will then drag this tab across and we will open the header tab. Once the page is loaded, again, we will use our mouse cursor to navigate around the page. As you can see while we are navigating around, there are boxes highlighted around each section. We will start with the topmost section. In this case, you can see it is highlighted by the blue bar. By selecting the Edit button, the window on the left appears. As in our previous tutorials, we will start with the layout. Here we can change the stretching of the section, the content width, the column gap, the height, the minimum height, column position, vertical alignment, and so forth. The parallax and particles are add-ons, so you need not worry about these. In the structure, you can see we have quite a few columns. I believe it is 5, as we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns in the section. Moving on to the styling section, here we can choose to add a color to the background, as seen here. We can also add an image by selecting an image from our media library, or we are able to upload a new image from our computer. Moving on, we can decide to add a scrolling effect or a mouse effect to the section. We can also add a background overlay or a hover background overlay. Moving forward, we have the border section. Here we can choose to add a border to this entire section, either a normal border or a hover border. Next, we have our shape divider, which can be either at the top or the bottom of the section. Lastly, moving into the advanced section, we have our margin and padding, which is the spacing. As you can see, our padding is currently set to 0 to keep it nice and neat. Moving on to the motion effects, we can add a scrolling effect as well as an entrance animation, as seen there. Lastly, in the responsive, attribute, and custom CSS, you do not need to worry about these as they are for more in-depth development. Now that we have covered the section, we are going to edit one of these columns. We can see it is a column by the dotted black and white border. Again, we will select the Edit button and then the window on the left will appear. Here we have our layout settings, including our column width, horizontal and vertical alignment, and in our styling section, we can choose our background, whether it be a color, an image. We can add scrolling and mouse effects to this background. We're also able to add a background overlay, either normal or hover, a border to this column, which as you can see only applies to the column selected. And in the advanced section, we have our margin and our padding. Again, you can see our padding is set to 0, as we're trying to keep this neat. In our motion effects section, we can change the scrolling effects, mouse effects, as well as the entrance animation, which applies only to a column. Lastly, in the responsive attributes and custom CSS section, you need not worry about these. Moving on from the column, we are now going to edit an actual widget. The widgets can be shown with a thin blue border. In this case, I will be editing the button. As you can see, the window on the left has appeared. And here we can change the type of the button, the text for the button, the link, which takes us to the sermons, the alignment of the button, the size. We can add an icon and choose to change the icon spacing. In the styling section, we have our typography, which includes our font, text size, weight. We can transform the text, change the style, and add decorations to the text. We're also able to add a text shadow if we wish, and here we can change the text and background color for the normal and the hover effects. As you can see, the button changes color when we hover over it. We can also choose to add a border if we wish. Lastly, in our advanced tab, we have a margin and our padding section. As you can see here, we currently have our padding of the right set to 5 to give us a little gap between the button and the container. Moving on to the motion effects, here we can add scrolling effects, mouse effects, as well as an entrance animation for this widget. I will set that back to default, and we will move on to the background. here we can choose to add a color or an image to the background of this widget. Next is the border. Again, just as before, we can choose to add a border to this widget. Lastly, in our responsive attributes and custom CSS, you do not need to worry about this, as it is for more in-depth development. So, to edit the header, we will simply navigate with our mouse, find the section we are wishing to edit, select Edit, make the changes, and once we are happy, we will hit Update at the bottom left. That is how you would update or edit the header of your website.